Hi everybody. I received a question from a subscriber on a video that I made on how to tailor your shirt larger. He asked if it was ever needed to open your collar and make that larger, for a larger neck. I'm going to say yes. I've never actually done it myself. So this video is just shooting straight from the hip. I've never done this before. I've only had time to think about it. And I did look online to see if other people had a video out like this. And yes, there are videos out like this, but I didn't watch them because I didn't want to be influenced on what they did. I just wanted to work off my own ideas. So yeah, let's just jump into it and we'll see how it turns out in the end. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to cut this. I'm going to take the collar and the neckband off. I'm going to cut up here and I'm going to insert a gusset there. And the reason why I was thinking that this might be an idea is because when I watch shows or movies, I'm always aware of their clothing, and there are designs that kind of have this idea. I can't remember the name of the shirt, but a lot of Mexican men wear these. I used to live in Southern California, and you'd see this usually is some kind of embroidery here. I don't know if it's even strictly Mexican as much as it is like a Latin type of style. And it has embroidery here, so that kind of gives the idea of maybe an insert. And then I was watching Bones, and Angela Montenegro has a skirt that I noticed. It looked to me like, I don't know if it was the actual designer's idea to do this, but she had darts in her skirt that were darker than her skirt. So I'm thinking, did they need to open the skirt and they had to make it look like a design detail? So the skirt kind of looked like it. I don't know what the intention was. So I was thinking on this, it would have to look like a design detail. So I'm probably going to use white fabric in here, but you can use any fabric. You can use a blue with an embroidery on it, or you can use a brown or a pink with embroidery in it to make it look like it belongs there. The first thing I'm going to do is take out the hem of the sleeves, and then I will remove the collar and the collar stand. Okay, I have the collar and collar stand off. I have the hems out of the sleeves. Now what I'm going to do is, it looks like there's a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So I am going to press a crease back here so I know where the center back is. I am going to press the collar, I'm going to fold it like this, and I'm going to crease it here so I know where the center back is. And I'm kind of thinking right now, I'm going to open it here, and I'm going to have to take a 1/4 inch seam allowance from each side of the cut. So it's a 1/2 inch I'm losing. So if I put a 1 inch back there, I am going to have to do 1.5 inch insert to make up for the 1/2 inch I'm losing. And I'm sorry, that is incorrect. I'm not cutting this open. I'm going to crease it, but the insert's going in here, not here. Or I'm not cutting the back of the shirt. I'm only cutting the collar and collar stand. So I am going to go crease the back so I'll know where the center back is, and then I'm going to crease the collar and collar stand. Okay, before I cut the shirt, I wanted to get a measurement. It doesn't have to be accurate. It just has to be at least the same length, but I want it longer. So I'm going to give an extra inch at the top. I'm going to come down here, and it comes to 20 3/4 inches. I'm going to go to 22 because when you start adjusting things like this, you're going to have to account for having to blend lines. See how this is? We're going to have to do some trimming when you open it up. So I just want to make sure that it's at least an inch longer. Okay, this is the pattern for the center back of the collar. I'm doing a 1/2 inch on each shoulders, so I need to make up that extra in the back of the collar. So there's my 1 inch insert. I added a 1/4 inch for my seam allowance, and then a 1/4 inch to account for the 1/4 inch I'm losing in seam allowance from my collar. Okay, so I measured out 22 inches in length for this pattern. And this is going to be the 1/2 inch plus, okay, so it's a 1/2 inch for the pattern. And then we're going to do another 1/2 inch for the seam allowances on one side, accounting for the shirt and the seam allowance for the strip. And then the same for the other side. So we're looking at 1.5 inches. Okay, so that will be the pattern for the shoulder straps, or the shoulder stripes. Okay, so I got the straps cut out, or should I just call them inserts? I got the inserts cut out. The 2 for the shoulders and the 1 for the collar. Now I am going to do the very scary part of cutting this, and hopefully I can get it straight. With this, with 1/4 inch seam allowance, you don't have a lot of room for mistakes, so we'll be careful. I kind of have a 2 crease thing going on here, so I have to be careful and stick with one. Okay, so they're opened up. So what I'm doing is, if you watched Tailoring It Larger with a gusset, I think I give this advice in that one as well. I'm going to make some marks on the insert according to marks on the shirt. So I'm going to do the first fold, the second fold, and the shoulder seam, because if you just sew it and then the other side, you sew the other side, sometimes when you're sewing, the presser foot, if this is a presser foot, it kind of pushes the fabric this way while the feed dogs are doing this. And then when you sew the other side, it's just the opposite. So when you have your insert in here, the grain is off. So I really advise you to take this extra step just to make sure things are good. So the first fold is 1/4 inch from the end. Now this is longer than I need it, so I don't have to have it exactly at the end. So I'm going to do it here. That will be, I'm going to use that as my raw edge where I'll trim it. So I'm going to go up 1/4 inch from that. So this second line will be placed on that fold. And then the next one is the hem line, and that is 1 inch from that line, from your first fold line, not from the edge of the fabric. So when you line it up and you pin it together, this one is going to go on the fold. This one will be on the second, or the first fold. This will be on the second fold, if that makes any sense. So, and up here you see, this is where the sleeve is sewn onto the shirt. I'm going to put a mark there. And that's where you're going to make sure those things line up to ensure that your grain is correct. Okay. And then up here, it doesn't really matter. So this, you see the line, it's going to be pinned on that, the stitching line. And I will leave a link in my description box for this chalk I'm using. In most cases, it does disappear when you press your shirt, which is why it's good for alterations, not so good for garment construction. And I like to pin often, just to make sure there's not going to be any tucks or puckers. And then just keep moving this up. And then when you sew it to the other side of the shirt, you're going to make sure those lines are going to align in the same place. So you see how that is? It's going to have to be, you have to kind of blend this. This will be trimmed off, and it'll just be blended like this. So just imagine if the fabric actually went with the shirt, it would look okay for now. But I will show you what you can do to make it look less like an insert and more like it was supposed to be there. Okay, I sewed this up without putting the camera on. Totally forgot. So this is what it looks like. And I think, I mean, if it was the right fabric, I think it would look good. I'm going to do the other side and then come back and show it to you. And then we'll talk about the collar. I still have to do that. So I'm going to go off camera to finish up the rest of it. I'll come back to do the collar and then to put it on. Okay, now we're going to use, or to work on the collar insert. Now, normally I would fold it like this, slip the collar in here, align it, sew it, flip it back, and it would have a really nice finish. But when I would go to do the other side of the collar, I had to do all this weird folding thing, and it wasn't working. So I went to my regular go-to method, and that is I fold it over like this. And then on your seam allowance, the seam allowance you normally use, you're going to do a basting stitch from top to bottom, and you're not going to back stitch. I'm going to leave a tail so that it won't come out until I'm ready for it to come out. And then flip it over and do the other side. Now the reason why I do this is I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to turn this right side out and then really push out the fabric to make sure that I have a nice flat straight fold on both sides. And I'll show you when I'm done. This is going to be kind of difficult because it's so small and it's interfaced. So it might take a little work getting it through. But I do this because I'm going to have to sew this on as a top stitch. And this just ensures that I can sew one side and the front, the top and the bottom at the same time, and make sure that I get the fabric on the underside as well, because they're going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to go press this out and I'll be back. Okay, this is what it looks like after I've pressed it. Now this was like attempt two or three, because I was trying to find a way that would just be the easiest to show you guys. And if you're beginners, I want it to be really easy for you. And I find that this is the easiest. So I did the right sides together, sewed it, and then I use anything I can get my hands on. And I didn't want to use a pencil or a pen because I didn't want it to come through the fabric or come through the side seam. So I have these utensils like forks and spoons. They have a nice rounded end to the handle and they're completely smooth. So I would use that to kind of turn this right side out and push off the sides. So as much as I could, I pushed them out. You can see the stitching right here. And so this is what it looks like. And if you messed up, when you take out the threads, don't try to fix the folds, because then the front will be different from the back. And you want them to be exactly the same so that when you sew it on, you're not going to have any problems with sewing the front but not the back, you know, not catching the back in the stitching. So I'm going to take these out. And as I've stated before, we'll be approaching it from a top stitch, not like regular and then flipping it right side out. And again, I don't know how many people use this method. It's just something that I came up with on my own. And this is how I do it. So if you want, you can take it back to the iron and just give this a good press, or you can just take it straight to your collar and fold it over, tuck your collar in there. And then when you sew, if this is wonky in the front, it's going to have the same wonk on the back. So it's going to catch both the front and the back. Try not to tweak it too much. Just slide your collar up in there and then start sewing. Okay, I want you to pay attention to how I'm doing this. When you're starting at the top, sewing down through the collar, you only go down until you meet where the collar meets the collar stand. And then you do the other side, sewing the collar on the same way. And the reason for this is because the collar stand has to be sewn separately so that it can sandwich the shirt inside. So just pay attention to how this is done. After this, you flip it over right here. You take the collar stand from the underside and flip it back out of the way. And then you continue the stitching from where you left off at the collar all the way down through the end of the collar stand. And you do that both sides. All right, everybody, it is time to get the collar put back on. So what I'm going to do is mark the center back of the collar, and then I'll mark the center back of the shirt, and I can see where I had it creased, and unfortunately the label is not centered on the back. So according to the label, it will be offset a little bit, but I'm not worried about that. Now, all we have to do is I'm going to sandwich the shirt into the collar stand. And I will pin that in place. I think it's kind of thick here. I think what I did wrong was when you interface your collar, you only do one side, you do one piece, not the other. And this is actually, they're both interfaced. So it does cause it to be a little thicker, but that's okay. We'll manage. Okay, I have it pinned on, and if it's pinned correctly, it looks like I'm gonna have to fix it in this area. As long as your pins are placed the same on the front and the back, on the collar area, then you should be fine to go ahead and sew it down. But I think when I pinned the first one down under here, it didn't, it wasn't laying correctly inside. So I will just have to go over it again and make sure that there's enough fabric pushed into the collar stand so that I won't miss any of it. This looks like it might be a problem. Okay, I'm gonna get the sewing machine up here and we can start sewing. I just noticed that the button is here, so hopefully this is not going to throw me off. Hopefully that did it. Now that you've finished sewing it on, you'll need to go to the back, and wherever you missed it, you'll need to redo it. Like this right here would need to be redone because it's kind of tucked. And then if you missed any areas, like looks like I missed something here, I would have to redo that. So, and this does look ugly, I understand, but this is the first time I've ever done it, and it's my first attempt at it. So that's to be expected. The more you do something, the better you get. And then you'll need to fold it here and give it a good press like you would with the other part of the shirt. So that's the end of it. Now, after I upload this video, then I'm going to go online and see how other people do it so that I won't back out and not load it in case mine is crazy. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.